parable of the persistent widow. And he told them a parable to the effect that they always ought to pray and not lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor respected man. And there was a widow in that city who kept coming to him and saying, "Give me justice against my adversary." For a while he refused. But afterward he said to himself, "Though I neither fear God nor respect man, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will give her justice, so that she will not beat me down by her continual coming." And the Lord said, "Hear what the unrighteous judge says. And will not God give justice to his elect who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? I tell you, he will give justice to them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" The gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. The title of the sermon this morning is "Put Me In, Coach," and we're going to get to that in just a minute, but I want to start with Jacob. If you've read the story of Jacob, Pastor Paul and I were talking about this morning, he's a piece of work. Jacob's, when it comes to sin, Jacob's pretty good at it. Know anybody like that? Look at the person next to you. Not making any accusations, just saying look at the person next to you. We're all pretty good at sin. It's not that hard, is it? It's not that hard to be good at sin. And Jacob had managed it well. Jacob, who had stolen his birthright stolen his brother's birthright, who had duped his own father into believing that he was his brother just to get blessed, just so he could be the greatest son. Jacob, the son-in-law that was running away from the father-in-law because he didn't feel like he had been treated fairly, and on top of it had done things to steal the greater of the flock away from his father-in-law. And so here we find Jacob on a journey. He's left his father-in-law's house with the greatest of his flock. And so he's kind of being pursued by his father-in-law. And he's going back to Canaan, the land where Esau, his brother whom he had stolen the birthright from, lives. And so word had gotten to Esau that he was coming. And so Esau was coming to meet Jacob with 400 soldiers. Not exactly the place you'd want to be, right? So Jacob is standing on the banks of the Jacob, the river. We'll call it the Guadalupe. So he's standing on the banks of the Guadalupe and he's looking across and he goes, "What do I do? Here I am with no place to lay my head. I'm being pursued here. I'm being met here. What do I do?" And so he prepares his family. He prepares his flocks. He sends a message ahead to Esau that says, "You know what? Here is the greatest that I have to offer you." Kind of a peace offering. And he sends that across. And he's standing alone on this side of the river. His family, his flock, everything is gone across to greet Esau as he comes with soldiers. And he stands alone on this side of the river. Beaten. Depleted. And he goes to sleep. And in his sleep, he has a dream. And following that dream, it says a man, and there are different theological positions on who the man was. But in later verses, it says that he met God face to face, that he wrestled with God. And so God himself appeared to Jacob and wrestled with Jacob through the night. And Jacob wouldn't give up. Jacob fought and he fought and he fought. And when it finally became morning, the Lord, still grappling a hold of Jacob, looks at Jacob and says, what is your name? And he said, I'm Jacob. And he said, you'll no longer be known as Jacob, the one who grabs the heel, the one who follows. But you will be called Israel, the one who wrestled with God. He tenaciously fought with God. He grappled with God and wrestled and wrestled and wrestled. And God stood there, and as he held him, he looked at him and he said, all right, you wrestled with me, you fought with me, and I am going to bless you. Not only will you be the father of many sons, you will be the father of many nations. You will be the beginning of Israel. You will be the one who fathers kings. So here we are. He's being blessed. But what is the angel of the Lord, or what does the Lord do when he wrestles with him? He wrestles with him all night. He blesses him, and then he reaches out and does what? Touches his hip. And puts his hip out of joint for the rest of his life. He blessed him, and he cursed him. There was a physical battle that went on. And because of that physical battle, he would forever remember the pain of fighting with God. He would never forget that night. Jesus is standing there talking to the people. And he tells the story of this widow, this persistent widow who would never give up, who would always go to the judge and always say, give me justice, give me justice, give me justice. And the judge didn't care about God. He didn't care about man. All he cared about was dispensing the law. And he finally just got tired of hearing that widow. Anybody have kids and this sound familiar? It's getting close to Christmas. You're going to hear it. We're already hearing it. Olivia told me the other day, I don't want anything else. It's a lie. If you give me this one thing, Mom, I won't ask for anything else until they get that. And then there's always something else. But aren't we that way as well? Aren't we like little kids in the faith? God, if you give me this one thing, I promise I won't ask for anything else. The persistent widow asked over and over and over again. All she was looking for was justice. She was being tenacious. She was being persistent. She wouldn't let go. She kept hanging on. And finally the judge said, all right already. I will take care of you. I'll give you justice. Just leave me alone. And God said, you know what? It's faith that's persistent. Jesus looked at the people and said, would not your loving God treat you even better than the judge treated the widow? All you have to do is be persistent. Don't give up. Keep on God and stay with him doggedly. And he will bless you. But you know what it didn't say? It didn't say that those blessings were always going to be free of pain. It didn't say that those blessings were always going to be perfect in the sense that we weren't going to suffer to get them. How many of you entered into this faith thinking, you know what, if I'm here and if I'm consistent, all that, and I do everything that they tell me to do, and I follow all the rules, that this life's going to be easy, that I'm going to get blessed, and it's not going to be hard at all. Did anybody sign up for that? Would anybody like to sign up for that? Yeah, we'd love it to be that way, wouldn't we? The other day I had a soldier come in and say, hey, chap, I don't know if I can do this. They'd only been in a couple of months. He said, I don't know that I can do this. I said, well, why did you come into the military? Well, it was a great opportunity for me to get college fund money. And it was a great opportunity for me to get a paycheck every month. It was a great chance for me. But I don't know that I can do it. And I said, well, what did you expect? Did you expect that when you got here, they were going to give you some roses and put a crown on your head and say thanks? That you're the best thing that happened to the Army since General Washington? Or did you think that you were going to have to work for it and that there were going to be moments where you were going, what did I get myself into? Especially when you get that phone call that says, you know what, hey, you're about to leave. You're about to go and you're about to fight for your country. Did you think that that wasn't going to happen? Did you think that wasn't on the table? Well, no, I guess I hadn't thought about it that way. It's a big decision to make and not think about. Folks, when we're called to the faith, guess what? We're entering into a battlefield. We're entering into a place where we're going to be fought tooth and nail every step of the way. Faith is not just an easy thing. There's an easy path to faith. All we have to do is what? Believe in our hearts and confess with our mouths. That's all we have to do. But because we believe in our hearts and because we confess with our mouths and because we have faith, then the battle starts. Then we have to be tenacious. And guess what? We're going to get beat up along the way. Our hip's going to be out of joint. We're going to have some bumps and bruises. It's not going to be easy. I think about this thing going on over here. Before I ever got here and you talked about building a building, what did you see? You saw the end picture, didn't you? Yeah. The committee brought to you the picture of what that building was going to look like and what that renovation was going to do for the church. And you knew that there were going to be some moments along the way that weren't going to be very fun. Have we experienced any of those? I went over the other day and walked through the offices where the offices are going to be. Guess where my office is? It's where the old bathrooms used to be. There's still a pipe coming out of the floor. I told them just leave it. I may need it one day. I don't know. So whenever you come and see me in my office, just know that my office used to be a bathroom. But it's funny because we see the end goal. Is that the way we kind of enter into faith too? What do we see when we enter into faith? What is our end game? What do we want to have? We want to have heaven, yeah? We like the picture of those pearly gates. We like those streets of gold. We like being at the crystal river and being knelt at the foot of the cross or at the foot of the throne and praising Jesus day in and day out. We love the end game. It's beautiful. But guess what? There's a lot of work that goes into getting there. Grace ain't cheap, folks. Please. Grace ain't cheap, but we act like it is. Jacob had to fight for it. He had to stand there and face God, and even though he got blessed, there was pain in the blessing. Folks, there's pain in the blessing. We have to be tenacious. But the biggest thing for me in the tenacity of our faith is that we got to be ready to be put in the game. We've got to be ready when we're called upon to be put in the game. One of my favorite things to watch is 5-year-old soccer. Have y'all been to a 5-year-old soccer game? It's the greatest thing in the world. Wherever the ball goes, 20 little kids go with it. And then it's funny because the ball's right in the middle and there's this big circle of about 25-year-olds. And then all of a sudden the ball squirts out behind them. And there's this one kid that goes and takes off and he gets it. That's the one that scores every time. But there's this, it is the greatest thing in the world to watch. I love it. And so my godson was playing the game. And he's a stinking little athlete anyway. He's built like a little rock. Y'all probably saw him last week at the worship outside the walls. He's about this big and about this wide, and he's just all muscle. And he can run through the rest of the kids, and they just bounce off of him. It's amazing. I love it. And so I went and saw one of his soccer games. And at 5, what is the goal of every coach with a bunch of 5-year-olds? Is it to play your best kids the whole time? No. Everybody gets in the game, right? They want everybody to play. But when Connor gets taken out of the game, guess what happens? Connor becomes the coach's shadow. The coach is walking around on the sidelines watching the game, and Connor's like, Coach, can I go back in? Can I go back in? Hey, Coach, are you ready for me? Hey, Coach, I'm ready to go back in. Tenacious. Wants to go back in the game, wants to be put back in because he so loves what he's doing that he can't wait to get back in the game. What if we had that kind of faith? What if we had faith so strong that we said, you know what, no matter what it is, here I am, Lord. I'm ready to get back in the game. Put me back in. It's so funny because I think so often we can convince ourselves that we don't have anything to do, or that we're not capable of doing things, or that we're not strong enough to be a Sunday school teacher, or that we're not capable of serving outside of these walls because we don't think we have what it takes. Anybody ever been in that position that they've talked themselves out of ministry because you didn't feel like you were equipped? I did it for 30 years. 20 years. I ran from God. I ran full force away from God. Not that I didn't have faith, but I just didn't have His faith in me. And I think that's what Jacob had to get a hold of. Jacob had to wrestle with God so he knew that God had it for him. That God said, you know what? I will use you. If you will grab onto me and fight like this all the time, I will make great things happen with you. St. Paul, we've got to grab onto the Lord and we've got to not let go. And when He says go, we've got to be ready. We can't sit here and think that ministry is going to happen if we're not willing to be put in the game. We've got to be ready. And we've got to say, put me in, Coach. We've got to go in and play like we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And when we have that kind of faith, guess what? We're going to get dinged up. And we're going to get hurt. Anybody ever seen the movie Rudy? Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. We've got one cheerleader. One cheerleader. And that cheerleader's standing behind us, each and every one, and he's calling out our name. And he's saying, you've got what it takes. Not because you've learned it, not because you were born with it, not because you are capable of it on your own, but because I will send you and I will give you what you need to do what I need you to do. You've just got to be willing to go into the game. Are you? You ready to play? Because God's ready to put you in. You got to be ready to say, put me in, Coach. Here am I. Send me. Amen? Amen. Let's stand and sing.